Good morning, beautiful people of the center.
Good morning, beautiful Edward.
Let's see. So this is a new month, and as you heard, we are focusing on a new spiritual practice, which is what we do every month. We look at a new spiritual practice, and the spiritual practice for this month is silence as a spiritual practice. So go right ahead. Actually, the staff and I were joking because, on the first Wednesday evening of each month, we hand out the free spiritual resource booklet. It's a free gift to everyone to guide them in their spiritual practice. And so we joked about just making an empty booklet, right? And handing out the cover and saying, just read it daily. And beyond the laughter, there's some wisdom to that. If we would just take the time. Just be in that practice of emptiness. And so we carried on joking, saying, what we ought to do is get a blank CD and hand it out to everybody and say, please just put it on once a day and listen to the whole thing. And somebody pointed out to me that actually that's already been done. You can buy CDs that have silence on them. I understand. Because I can see how the ritual of putting something on to be there for nothing would be very powerful in this particular practice. But the booklet is not empty. If you come on Wednesday evening, we'll hand this out, and it's got some rich material in about how you and I can create an experience of sanctuary for ourselves, how we can practice silence for ourselves without having to retreat to a mountaintop, because many of us can't do that right now, especially at this time of year when the world around us gets busier and richer and fuller, and we might think that I have to remain loyal to all of the demands on my life, and so the idea of silence and retreat gets smaller and smaller, and so hopefully there are some ideas in here that you can practice and stay in your silence throughout the busiest celebration period. So that's what we'll talk about on this upcoming Wednesday. And for this whole month, the booklet is entitled Silence and Retreat as Spiritual Practices. So there are 8 weeks of suggestions, and we'll be handing that out free on Wednesday. So as I was sitting with this topic, silence, it occurred to me that so many people will ask me, how do you go about researching and preparing these messages? So I thought I'd bring some of my process to share with you. And one of the things I often do when it's a topic that is big or maybe difficult to wrap fingers around, I'll reach for the concordance to the Science of Mind textbook, which is a wonderful place to start. And I'll look up the word that we're dealing with, and it'll tell me all of the places in the Science of Mind, written by Ernest Holmes, where it occurs, and it's a wonderful meditation to start that way. And that's what I did. I pulled up the word silence, and I looked at it, and then I turned to the references in the book and read them. And one of the first places that it referred to was in the back end of this wonderful book, where there is a glossary of terms, which is an index of terminology that he's gone about defining. And the way I use it is I go to these words and then I rewrite them in my own words. Because I'm not so much inclined to take somebody else's opinion as much as to use it as a pointer, a signpost in the direction of what I might myself come to. I'm enriched by other people's opinions and directions, certainly. And that's really at the heart of our study. We're not devoted to this book as a sacred text. It's just a signpost on the road. And if it's inspiring, good. If you disagree with it, also good. Isn't that wonderful? And in fact, I love to find parts in it that I absolutely disagree with. So what am I going to do with this? So I sit with it and I rewrite it until it conforms to my opinion. And I might discover tomorrow I've changed my mind, which is the nature of thing. If we are living and breathing, we're developing and evolving, so we must change our opinion. And sometimes I find out it wasn't my opinion that was right. So the first place I found is in the glossary, and under the word silence, and it's a rather meaty piece. He has a lot to say about it. He says silence, the word is used oftener and perhaps less understood than any one word in the terminology of the metaphysician. There is no place we must go for the silence. There is no particular posture we must assume. There's no formula we must repeat. We enter this inner tabernacle by whatever route we may. Now, some people live in such conscious unity with good, with the thing itself, that instantly they can turn within and connect with it and use it and express it to take the directed avenues they wish it to take. Now, others need to approach it by prayer, by singing, by reading a verse from the Bible, by repeating an inspirational poem, by meditation, by selfless service, by creativity, by dance, by whatever route you use. That is so wonderful. That would be at the heart of the teaching of the Center for Spiritual Living, that all paths are valid for those who follow them. And such a relief. You see, because we have no conversion policy. There is absolutely no interest to us to convert people to our way, because we're not even certain that our way is the right way. Except for when it is right for us, it is right. Isn't that wonderful? I have no idea that this philosophy is the best or the only. At times, it is certainly the best for me and the right way. And there's no idea in our teaching that there is any spot on earth that is more holier than any other spot, except those spots that through our agreement we declare to be what we want it to be. We name a thing, and it is established to us. Amazing. And so, by whatever route we may be traveling on, we are to be our own judges of the soundness of the path that we are on through reflection and introspection. So I suppose what is really important is that we know that there is such a thing as an inner sanctuary, if there is one. A something that is beyond our thinking mind. And it's up to each person to find their way to that. See, beyond our thinking mind is the chapter in the book that we're reading together. I'll show you in a moment. I'll show it to you now. Stillness Speaks. And he says something so beautiful in here. He says that the next evolution of the human condition will be that in which we stop identifying with our thinking. It's not that we will stop thinking. It's that we'll stop being run by it. We'll stop believing all of our thinking. Instead, we will use it. We'll notice it. And we will look past thought to the silent tabernacle that is there, always has been, and have a relationship with it. It goes on to say, if we know that God is forever right where we are, we shall not be reaching out in every direction for Him. So now when I read this, I edit it liberally, because I can see no benefit to keeping gender-specific language alive in my consciousness. So I just edit it as I go along. And if I see Him or God, I change it to any one of the available words, the thing itself, spirit. If I see Him, I change it to it. So I might read, if we know that spirit is forever right where we are, we shall not be reaching out in every direction for it. We enter the inner chamber of our mind, close the door on all discord and confusion, and commune with our spirit, our spiritual consciousness, our power within. So silence then, to us, he explains it for those who accept this as an idea, is our inner communion with the thing itself. And that can be done anywhere, anytime, anyhow, anywhen, no matter what is going on outside. It's got nothing to do with the environment that we're in. It's present with us wherever we are as an option and availability. You know, yesterday I heard a speaker speak. She's a student of Jewish scripture, and she told the story about how the angels were arguing about where to hide the scriptures so that humans wouldn't get a hold of it. And I heard the same story, but in a Hindu context. And the idea of the Hindu story was that at one point in creation, all humans were gods. But they caused such havoc with their power to create that the lesser gods said, we've got to stop this. We need to take the humankind's divinity and hide it somewhere where they can't get their hands on it and they can't cause trouble, because this is out of hand. So they had a council and they tried to debate, where are we going to hide humankind's divinity? And they said, oh, I know, we'll put it on the very toppest of the mountains because they can't get there. And Brahma said, are you kidding? They will in time get there. They are very clever. They said, all right, I know what we'll do. We'll hide it in the bottom of the ocean because they can't go there. And Brahma said, are you crazy? Of course they will get there. They will search out every place. They will find a way to get there, and they will get to the bottom of the sea, and they will find it. So they put their heads together and said, I know what we will do. We will put it in a place where they are least likely to look, inside of their very own being. And I loved being reminded of the story because it reminds me of how often I will refer to external references for my well-being. I'll look, title, position, accomplishment, possessions, relationships, all the things that we treat about endlessly to define me. Even thinking is an external reference. When the treasure is in our inner communion with Spirit, in that tabernacle, so I continued looking through the references, and this one over here was interesting. It's under an entry called Victory. I thought, how interesting in a spiritual book. It says, victory is a gaining of the superiority in any struggle. And to the metaphysician, and that's you and me, every victory is won in the silence of our own soul by turning to the power within. So what has been written about you, the victory that has been written about you, the struggle that has been written about you is not war, but the inner struggle. And how in every case, the turning from that struggle to the inner tabernacle is where the answer is. So we turn to the inner silence and listen to it. Listen to the silence that's beyond our thought of what a thing should be and how a thing should turn out and who should go where and what and how I should own this or that. And if we listen to that silence, what do we hear? As I listen to the silence, it says on page 299, the voice of all humanity speaks to me and answers the love that I hold out to it, which means when I listen to the silence, I don't hear nothing. It doesn't necessarily become quiet. What happens is I become attuned to the abundant richness of what is always, all the time present. You know, a young man once came to the center here and he said, I can't sit through that moment of silent meditation that you do in the service because it's not silent. I can hear the electricity of the lights. I can hear when the air conditioner kicks in and everybody in the congregation is so restless and there's coughing and moving around, and I don't have the experience of being quiet at all. So I had compassion with that experience. I made some suggestions for how he might be able to practice his own silence, But it reminded me of my own experience with being distracted by low-level things. I remember my yoga teacher, who I complained to because she had left a window open, and while I was trying to do my peaceful poses, a fly had come into the room and was distracting me terribly. And she said to me, how interesting that you are courting the divine and you're more interested in a fly. And it just reminded me of times where external references, low-level distractions, I let them take the center stage. And they take up the bulk of my thinking mind, and then my thinking mind thinks it's the only show. And then I believe it, and then I get engaged in it, then I act from it, and then I'm living in my thinking mind. Dealing with low-level distractions where all of the time there is a tabernacle of peace that I forgot to refer to. See, stillness and silence is not the absence of noise. Yes, it's a listening and a waiting and a receptivity to what is. In the book of the month, he makes some beautiful suggestions for how we might practice listening to the silence. On page 25, he says, feel the energy of your inner body, and immediately mental noise slows down and ceases. Feel it in your hands. Feel it in your feet, in your abdomen, in your chest. Feel the life that you are. Feel the life that animates you. And watch how in just that movement of attention, stillness comes. It doesn't say anything about the external activity ceasing. It doesn't say that it will become quiet around us, or that people will stop fighting, or that this or that. It's that wherever you are, wherever I am, I have the option. I carried on looking, and I found this. No person need prepare to meet the Spirit. We are meeting it every day and each hour of the day. We meet it in the rising sun, in the flowing stream, in the budding rose, in the joy of friendship and love, and in the silence of our own soul. It's a reminder that whatever is going on, wherever I am, I have available always for me the opportunity to meet reality in stillness, even while I'm acting. You see, Spirit is everywhere present. It's such an easy statement. But I don't seem to be able to get through the end of a single day without forgetting that. It seems to me that by afternoon, I have forgotten that. And I have to recalibrate and come back all the time. And also what this piece reminded me of is there's so many faith traditions, it's certainly the one that I grew up in, had a focus on the life to come after everything is complete. And what a relief it was to come to the Center for Spiritual Living where the teaching is, be here now with you. And when I look out at the world from the tabernacle of silence, it's very, very lovely. When I look out of my thought and my assessment and my judgment and my requirements and my preferences and what I want and what I don't want, very painful. So we are called each in our own way to meditate upon these things, such as this statement from the text. So I will follow thee, my inner silence, and learn of thee. I will sit in the tabernacle within and listen and watch. And I will see your light, the illumination, the wisdom, and I will hear the voice, the inspiration, to sit and to listen and to watch. Nobody can do it for me. It made me think of the Quaker movement, the Quaker movement. There's about 11% of Quakers who practice something called unprogrammed worship. It's waiting worship is another word they call it. And what they do is they sit together in complete silence. It's an expectant silence. They're waiting upon their own hearing, their own personal experience of God. Now, keep in mind, not all Quakers are the same, because you know how we are human beings. When we get together, we must break apart also. We've got to have splits in our movements. But the 11% who practice this, you can find their Q&A on the, I think it's called the General Conference webpage of Friends, something like that. Anyway, I went and got it, and I brought it to you. What do Quakers believe? Now, take out Quakers and see if your name can fit there. We believe that every person is loved and guided by a spirit. Broadly speaking, we affirm that there is that of the thing itself in everyone. Everyone is known to it, and we can know God in a direct relationship without any intermediary, without any requirement, without any condition, without any learning, without any practice, without any studying. We are called to attend to this relationship and to be guided by it. And there's the question for the month. Do I attend to this relationship? Quakers use many words to describe the divine. Some of them include God, the light within, Christ, spirit, seed, an inward teacher, energy, life, creator, the thing itself, the whatever it is. It's all about direct encounters, and that direct encounter is come into in the silence. That's why I think we say the silence is our communion with Spirit. Do I attend to it? So what happens in a Quaker worship? Quaker worship is based on silent waiting, where we expect to come into the presence of God. In this living silence, we listen for the still, small voice that comes from God through the inward light. Worshipping together in silence is a way for a community to be brought together in love and faithfulness. And I read that. What sprung into my mind was the last piece at the end of the first section of the textbook. It's called The General Conclusion, in which the author summarizes the whole thing. This is what the whole thing is about. Here's what he says. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction followed by spiritual experience. Here's the part that I thought of. I would rather see a student of this philosophy, of this religion, prove its principle than to have that student repeat all of the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. Because it is far easier to teach the truth than it is to practice it. That's right. You see, so there comes a time when all the talking about it needs to cease. See, can I be it? Am I a living example? So easy to say we are one, but by this afternoon, will we be two again? And that's up to me, that beautiful statement. Be the peace you wish to see. Be the change you wish to see. Be the love you wish to see. Okay? And in this little book of the month, there's something so beautiful about it. He says, the function of a spiritual teacher or a religion is not to fill you and me up with their opinions and practices and beliefs, but instead to tear those all apart and uncover it so that it can point in the direction of your and my own path. Can we find that deep, quiet peace so that our lives can become a testimony to it, its own evidence? And he goes on to say, but the practice of this truth is personal to each. And in the long run, no one can live our lives for us. And to each is given what is needed, and the gifts of heaven come alike to all. How we shall use these gifts, that's all that matters. To hold one's thoughts steadfastly to the constructive, to that which endures, and to the truth. To hold the thought steadfastly to that. Whoa. I think that's it. It's fine to find what I believe, but to stay with it. Can I stay with it? Just one day. It reminds me of, in Isaiah, it says, you will keep him or her in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on you. My mind, can it just be stayed? Not forced, but can it land and rest and be there? Just for one day. Because sometimes I can get so wrapped up in the practice, right? Or the outer form, right? Or the religion and the identity with the group and the things outside of me that I forget the point of life. And he goes on to say, the essence of spiritual mind healing and of all true religious philosophies is an inner realization of the presence of perfection, the silence. Within and around, it is the hope of heaven, the voice of God proclaiming, I am that which thou art that which I am. In the little book of the month, he says something so powerful. He says, it is always more helpful when using this book. It is always more important to stop reading than to continue. It's always more important to wake up to the power of your own inner tabernacle beyond the realm of your own thinking mind, to meet the God of your being and to live your life from that. It's always more important to stop talking. So I shall. And I invite you to take this moment with me to breathe in, to exhale, letting your eyes close if that's comfortable. And in this quiet, to say your own prayer in whatever way is suitable, just briefly, so that you can let be your thoughts and sit in waiting expectation of the inner presence.